from our audience, and the topic is very interesting, but if possible, see if you can keep your answers short so we can cover a lot of questions from our audience everywhere. Let me do this in alphabetical order. And if you can briefly introduce yourself and tell us about your life from birth till this morning in 30 seconds. Arka.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity, Mr. Chog and ILA. My name is Orko. I represent Argus Partners. So some of the practice areas that I look after is one of the practice areas that I look after is labor and employment, but I generally call myself as a general corporate lawyer and probably would share more in the course of the discussion.
Okay. Where were you born?
I was born in Calcutta. I graduated from NUJS. I started my career with Amarchand, the undivided Amarchand, and for the last 15, 16 years, I am with Argus right now.
Okay, beautiful. What percentage of India's 1.5 billion people know that Calcutta was India's capital for 200 years, you think?
I think probably as in it was part of the history lessons, at least when we were studying. So I'm
Right,
sure that the before the changes, I'm not sure with the changes in the history books and other things, I'm not sure that whether it is still being taught or not, or probably because we were belonging from Calcutta that that particular issue was highlighted. But we were aware that Calcutta was the capital of India during the British Raj.
right. It's funny how Mumbai is closer to London, but they went all the way around to find a capital on the other side of India.
Yeah, probably because
Dinesh,
of the port and other thing,
yeah,
other infrastructure.
trade,
Trade.
East India Company. Dinesh ji, tell us about your life.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Chuk, for inviting me. It's pleasure to be here. My name is Dinesh Jotwani. I am a lawyer from more than 3 decades. Um, and mostly my career has been in corporate sector. So I've been with technology companies as in-house counsel for around 17, 18 years. Now I have my own practice. I have a law firm in Delhi, and we do a lot of litigation. And our main focus is on intellectual property rights. So I'm myself a patent attorney, and I also hold some patents in my name in US also. So that's that's our main legal practice. Now we have around 60 lawyers in my law firm, and growing every day. It's becoming challenging, very tough. The regulatory environment, if you see, is challenging for once it is challenging for clients, it is challenging for us also. So pleasure to be here talking about a very interesting topic that is close to my heart. And also, so my background before LLB was also, I was economics honors, and my wife also is an economist. She was actually a student of Dr. Manmohan Singh, and she's also MPhil Delhi School of Economics. So when we saw the topic, we said, okay, this is something that interests us both. Thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Chok.
We should have invited your wife and not you, Dinesh.
Yes, she's here. Yes, absolutely. And
Madhu,
today happens to be my son's convocation. He's become a lawyer today.
oh,
So
congratulations.
very interesting day. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Madhu,
Thank you, Dr. Juk, for having me here. It's an interesting topic as well as a very knowledgeable panel, and also obviously the people who are listening to us also have tough questions on us. So to describe myself, I was born in Kerala and studied and grew up in Tamil Nadu, and then last 30 years I'm practicing. I mean, I've been working and practicing in Bangalore. So, and initial years of practice at civil courts in district headquarters in Tamil Nadu, Erode, and then from there After my company secretaryship, moved into corporate, worked in Cochin and Bangalore over the last 35 years in senior positions. And the last position I held as an employee was the Chief Legal Officer for Quest Corp, which even today is the largest employer in the country. So I used to manage the compliance and legal affairs and for Quest Corp, which at that point in time had about 6.5 lakh employees across the country. And then I was nominated to, I played quite a active role with Confederation of Indian Industries, their IR committee, India Staffing Federation, and all that. So through that, and Employers Federation of India, I'm on their national executive. So because of which I got nominated to the Employees Provident Fund Organization, one of the employer trustees. So when that happened in 2024, so I cannot do both. I cannot be part of a company which contributes the largest to the EPFO as well as the on the Central Board of Trustees of the same organization. So I thought I prefer to come back to this thing. Renewed my bar council license. Last 2 years I've been practicing as a lawyer. Currently with Singhani and Partners, where I'm one of the partners handling employment and legal employment area of law. That's briefly about me. Looking forward to the discussion today.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Purnima.
Hi, I'm Purnima Kamble. I am a senior partner with Fox Mandal and Associates LLP. I'm an equity partner with the firm as well, looking after Telangana and Andhra practice. Also involved in all India real estate work for Fox Mandal and Associates LLP. The born and bred in Lucknow. Was with Khaitan briefly in Delhi, then moved to Hyderabad, been with Fox for nearly 25 years now. I call myself a master, jack of all trades and master of maybe real estate, not really master, getting there. But being in a place like Hyderabad, you have to do just about everything. So I've done a lot of HR as well, which is why this topic is of great interest to me. And I'm very happy to be a part of this panel.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Shamshad.
Hi everyone, myself Dr. Shamshad Begum. So I have added doctorate recently, just 1.5 years back in aerospace, aviation actually. So otherwise I born in Belgium, but I studied in different cities because my dad was a high school headmaster, then became junior college lecturer. So most of the college education is from Hubli Dharwad, Karnataka University. I have done my BSc, LLB, labor law and commercial laws. Then I have done my LLM in Business and Trade Law from Karnataka University, gold medalist in both LLB and LLM. Then I have done my MBA in International Trade. That's all. Then coming to my job growth. So I started my career with practicing lawyer in Hubli Dharwad. I came to Bangalore in 2005. Then though I worked with many industries, my most of the work experience with Quest Global. I was heading legal team till 2022 in Quest Global. Then I moved out as an employee. Then I became proprietor of Intellectual Legal Holdings. After coming to Intellectual Legal Holdings, I'm supporting Quest also along with my other clients. Then I'm also POSH and POXO trainer. Recently, I completed my doctorate in aviation.
Congratulations.
This is
Wonderful.
a very interesting topic because I was handling employment in Quest Global. Now also I support employment in multiple geography, including UAE, US, and India.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Welcome, Vaibhav.
Good morning, everyone.
Tell us
Sure.
about your life.
Yeah. So I'm Vaibhav Bhardwaj. I'm a partner with Khaitan & Co. I've been in the legal practice for last 18 years, and I'm a hardcore employment and investigations lawyer. I have been practicing employment and labor laws for close to last 17 years. Started off as a general corporate lawyer for initially 3-4 years. Then I pivoted and chose this as my specialization. I have been with Khaitan & Company for last around 2.5 years. Before this, I was with other law firms. Before this, I was in Indus Law. Before that, I was with Shardul Amchand Mangaldas. I am based out of the Noida office of Khaitan & Co. I'm originally from Delhi. I've done my schooling, college, everything from Delhi.
Welcome, Vaibhav. Okay, Arka, we start with you. So I think in 1978 or so, the per capita income of India and China was the same, $300 per year. And today, India is at 3,000 and China is at 15,000. 10 countries in Africa are at 1,400 a year. Qatar, on the other hand, is at 140,000 at the other end of the spectrum. US is at 80,000, and worldwide average is about $16,000 to $17,000. So for India to become a first world nation, we have to cross the worldwide average. That's at least a 5x. China has reached close to the worldwide average. And I don't want to say that Indians are not as smart as Chinese or the rest of the world or are smarter than anybody else. Let's just say we're even. And at the end of the day, maybe statistically, scientifically, the world IQ is roughly the same based on, of course, how much milk you got growing up or whatever. So what's going on, Arka? Why are we so behind? We used to be the richest country in the planet from the year 1 to 1750.
I don't think that we can put the blame on any particular specific reason. I think it's a multitude of reasons which might have contributed to that. Definitely, as a lawyer, one of the things that we obviously say that look, you need to have a certainty of law, right? You need to be aware that whether the rules are enforceable, the laws are easy to navigate, another thing. If you look at the multitude of laws right now, only in 2025 that we have got those labor codes which culminated from 29 legislations into 4. What prevented the company from doing it earlier? Right, as in the 29 labor legislations were not giving any added advantage or was not giving any added protection which the 4 labor codes could not have done, with multiple of registrations, multiple of this thing which we can right now see that how there has been an attempt to streamline the process and everything, right? So probably that's one of the reasons the law probably have contributed to that, while we have. And I think, and probably the other panelists would also contribute to this, but I think also there is a misaligned importance in terms of degree as opposed to vocational training. We need to emphasize on the skills, we need to make the people employable. India is producing graduates in crores and thousands, right? But how many of them are employable? But then again, the question arises, what are the steps that we are making to make them employable? We have the Apprentice Act, we have the vocational training centers. How far are they effective? So I think there are multitude of issues. That's where I probably would stop here.
Thank you, Arka. So Dinesh, we're going to cover close to August 15th. Our webinar topic close to August 15th is of the top 100 freedom fighters that got us independence, 27 were lawyers. Jinnah and Gandhi and Nehru and Sardar Patel and Dr. Radhakrishnan and on and on and on. And we have done a lot of research and found that 27 were lawyers. So we got freedom in 1947, political freedom and otherwise freedom. And then we got arguably economic freedom in 1991 with liberalization. And now I feel that lawyers can play the biggest role in making India a first world nation. So my question to you is that if we lawyers could get together without an Indian Lawyers Association, I guess there was Indian National Congress. Somebody once told me that, yeah, before 100 years ago, the Indian Lawyers Association was called INC. So my question to you, Dinesh, is that do you think we lawyers can get together and lead India's next revolution?
Yes, I would agree to that. I would absolutely agree to that. One of the reasons and why the countries have progressed economically in Western world or even in Asian economy is because of the justice system that they have. You get quick justice, whether it's in commercial space or non-commercial space, personal space. I think, and the legal system has, I would say, in many ways disappointed over the years. And that is one of the reasons that India's economic growth has not been, as you pointed out, the GDP figures are in front of per capita GDP, I should say. Per capita GDP figures are in front of us, and uh, I I would I would point out that one of the main reason is, of course, the legal system, and this is where lawyers should come together. ILA is a good initiative. It's an association that has a lot of potential, uh, and we should come together in the interest of the country. Look at the regulatory environment today. Nobody is challenging that. Look at um, in the personal space, in the compensations, um, slow delivery of justice, criminal justice system that we have. I would say that lawyers should come together, and this is again a time for a second or a third independence to come forward, and lawyers should take an initiative in that. And when I say lawyers, it means the whole justice system, which means enforcement, the judges, the prosecution. Let's come together under an umbrella and let's make our future better for our children. Yeah.
So Madhu, Dinesh says lawyers can help, but if you arguably there's 1.45 billion people in the country and 27 lawyers helped India become free. And then I guess the population of India was 400 million in 47 and 80 went to Pakistan and 320 to India. And everybody's free in India today except for the lawyers, right? We can't advertise, we can't have a booth at a conference, we can't teach a class, we can't open a pan ki dukaan, we can't have a website, we cannot take matters on a contingency basis. We're in handcuffs. And Article 19 of the
Sorry to
trade.
interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. Last week, there was this. We can't even post proceedings of the court. So there was last week's judgment.
Correct.
So just to add to what you just mentioned, lawyers can't do that.
And so Article 19, what G of the Constitution say there shall be no restraint on trade. How can we help the rest of the country if the biggest restraints in the country are on lawyers? And we're supposed to lead the next revolution with handcuffs behind our back. What are we going to do, Madhu?
Good. Having said, I was telling you that I transitioned from a corporate role to being the lawyer, and was hit by some of these restrictions pretty quickly because the firm I started to work for saying, "Sir, you can't do this, you can't do that." When I started posting things on the LinkedIn, for example, so I'm pretty acutely aware of the problem. But having said that, I think as the previous speaker said, lawyers can definitely play a role, and. And right now, I think there is a great opportunity. For example, the other speaker was mentioning that we are transitioning into labor code. And one of the biggest problems that are contributors for the current situation, that the topic that we are discussing today, is also the labor laws as such did not adequately balance the interest of workers with the interest of capital. It's the very capital that creates the jobs in the first place, and then in our interest to kind of protect the workers, the social security, and all of that. I come from a very practical side because, as I told you, I was being compliance in charge for a large workforce. And one of the things that we always found as employers was that almost 35% of your why a person's workers' wages have to be literally confiscated for all their so-called protection, PF, ESIC, gratuity, etc., bonus. And that itself was a big disincentive for formalization. And I think that's where in your note you rightly capturing that we kind of skipped the normal route a normal economy would have taken from agriculture to manufacturing and then to services. One of the biggest reason could have been that. So from how can we play as a we have to be very active in ensuring labor codes don't fall into that trap. For example, I see very practical and procedural aspects of the code implementation, which is happening at the state levels now. Each state is now formalizing their rules. Is the intent of the labor codes, which are kind of more easier to, for more easier for the businesses to run, and also much more simpler processes, and also an opportunity. For example, wages is defined to be 50% of your total remuneration, which might help address the issue that I was talking about. And is that intent being carried forward in the states in their respective rules being framed? And also, as lawyers, when we represent our clients or issues that come up on these things, I think we need to take the right stand in front of the judiciary and get the right interpretations in the sense that when I say right, both in the interest of the workers as well as the employers, so that it doesn't become a burden for future. So that way, I think we have to be very actively part of. Probably India Lawyers Association itself should be seeking to look at the draft rules that is being framed by the respective states, and then are they conveying the intent of the reform and then intent of the labor codes in its practicality when each state's rules and procedures are formalized. So I think I will stop here. Lawyers do have a lot of roles to play. I, for example, being part of CII, IR committee, and then the Employers Federation of India, being part of many delegations, we go meet the states and then emphasize saying these things are not being addressed. Probably we go to the center and then tell them, why don't we just get all state governments in one place and then ensure their rules are being framed are not defeating the intent of the central government or the parliament when they passed these labor codes. I think we have an active role to play. Is my thought about it. I will wait for others to add and then probably answer questions.
Thank you, Madhu. So, Purnima, the single largest reason for the increase in GDP of the Western world between 1950 to 2000 was the birth control pill allowed women to go to work and control their lives. Single largest reason for the increase of GDP is women start working. India, the women's participation is somewhere between 25 to 33%, which means 2/3 of the working age women are not working. How do we get the women in India to show up at work and contribute to the GDP of the country?
Thank you so much for this question. I think that's a wonderful question that needs to be addressed. I think it's a white elephant in the room everywhere where employment conversations actually take place. I was, in fact, the chairwoman of CII IWN, that's the India Women Network, the sister, it's like a associated wing of CII. And this question, one of the areas that I really worked on was increasing women participation in the workforce. And, when you study across we did a small pilot study and we looked at policies across the globe. If you see, there's certain small European countries who have very progressive policies when it comes to women participation in the workforce. But they are all coming from a very evolved cultural context. For example, when we talk about sick, looking after the sick in the household, looking after the elderly, it was the need of the hour that was felt there was it should not just be a woman's role. It should be also equal participation by the man. And therefore, there were leaves given to men as well. And that is where the problem is in India. India is very uniquely placed. We would aspire to be like the West, but we live with the social and cultural issues that are very, very unique to India. And that mindset has to change. We have to stop stereotyping roles. Now, all these things are very soft, tangible issues. These are not, one policy is going to fix it. This has to start from a very, very early stage in the life cycle of Indian citizens. And therefore, education, awareness, all these things become very important. So the question you asked has to be put in two buckets. One has to be an immediate stopgap policy formulation that can bring more participation of women in the workforce. And second is the long term. The problem in policy formulations in India is my observation, completely my observation. The long term is always compromised for the short term. We have to ensure that the long term, when it comes to most of the issues, but in particular with women, the policies have to focus on awareness, long-term awareness, long-term participation of women in the workforce. Policies have to be made in that manner so that from the education level itself, from colleges, from schools, it is understood that the life cycle of every Indian citizen is participative. Don't distinguish between roles, that a secretarial role must go to a woman only, or a caretaker role has to go to a woman only. A nurse, you close your eyes, and if I say who's a nurse, you will think of a woman wearing the robe of a nurse. Why are there so many stereotypes in the society? And that is long-term policy focus. We say that, whenever you say a policy for these issues, we say, oh, these are systemic issues, these are cultural issues. But that is what the government also has to, take note of and try and get rid of those as well, or work with the society to get rid of those as well, which then is what we call bias. This bias that exists in the mindset of every Indian, where we have stereotyped women and we have said, okay, a woman must compromise, a woman must sit home and look after the in-laws if the need arises. It's the man who's got to go out there and earn. In the West, that has been addressed to a large extent. I'm not saying it's completely addressed, but in India, this problem still exists. The new generation, this is getting better. But I think the employment issue, by the time the new generation comes into mainstream, which is we've been talking about Gen Z and Alpha, when they come, things will change a little. But what about the current people? So the question that you asked is not so easy to deal with when it comes to policy. What we can deal with is the short term, where you have creche facilities, you have leaves, you have, leaves where if there is a sick in the household, an elderly, and someone has to take care of them, make policies which encourage men to get leaves as well. You don't need to have policies targeting only women getting leaves. I mean, we are talking about period leaves, but is that really what will bring equality? I think the equality will come by encouraging men as well. So, I think a holistic study, instead of just going with fancy words and trying to sort of just whip up some sort of frenzy, instead of going through all that, a lot of thought has to go to it, and the whole working population has to be looked at as a whole. When we are talking equality and women participation, we must ensure that when it comes to leaves, etc., incentives, it should be given in a way where men participate also, and they will then accept a lot of increased involvement of women in the workforce, and that is a soft, not very tangible incentive given to men. And these things will slowly lead to a change. Men will want more women to come into the workforce. Of course, the economic upside should also be visible to the entire family. So to answer your question, I've taken a lot of time, but to answer your question, this is not this is a very complicated issue, and needs to be dealt with a lot of direction, putting in two buckets: short term, long term, and not just looking at quick fixes, but looking at dealing with the social issues involved, which need to be dealt with absolute honesty.
Thank you. So Dr. Begum, there's what, 12,000 pilots in India and 1,800 are women, 15%, 85% men. So what is your plan to sue the top five Indian airlines and charge them with not hiring enough women? Is that your plan since you did PhD in aviation?
We can't do that, sir, because we have to create some systems and all. The pilots cannot be hired because of the equal proportions and all. They have to be qualified also. Whether it is pilots or air hostess or whatever it is, the airline industry works on all the qualifications and experiences.
But can't you sue them that they're not training women? What's stopping them
It's not
from
like
doing
that,
a
because
1 year?
I'm not only telling that, I will continue. There are so many trained pilots also there, and there are so many nowadays. The students are going for aviation kind of educations also, but they are not hired properly. So even I have seen in the Bangalore airport also, there are so many graduates, that aviation graduates people, and even including my son who has done the MBA in aviation. So he just had one internship in Bangalore International Airport, and afterwards, I think they will all look for the expert, the person with some experience. Unless until some experience will be given, the opportunity will be given by any new airline companies and all, the people cannot get the experience.
Yeah, Shama, that was just to bother you question since you have a PhD in aviation. So my real question to you is, what do you make theft? Because I've read endlessly about wage theft in the 195 countries in the planet, and India obviously ranks very high. Some states it's 5%, some states it's up to 35%. The data is not present. What's surprising to me is that even middle-sized and medium-sized businesses and large businesses also, there is wage theft. And I think the worst thing that a country or a company can do to their employees is engage in wage theft, because a company's expense is somebody's income. And if an employee is not getting paid properly, then that is ruining that household and thereby ruining that society and that city and that state and the country. What is your impression of, what do you think, how much is wage theft, and what can be done to reduce it?
No comment, sir. So I don't have much exposure to that and a number in hand.
Okay, so let me talk to you about a follow-up question to Purnima
Yeah.
about the women in workforce. With so many restrictions that women have, especially safety and hours and flexibility and places of work close to where they live, what do you think is the solution? If you were made Minister of Women Labor, what do you think 2, 3 things you can do to increase the female participation in the workforce of India?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, is it question to Purnima? Yeah, Purnima.
No, please. It was a question to you, Ms. Begum.
Yeah,
Okay.
Shama, you go ahead.
Okay. So the woman I have seen being a post trainer and all, I have seen in most of the companies talk about equal opportunity and equal things and all. But still, there are so many companies where the woman employees are not heard properly. And even I have seen some of the companies where the equal opportunities are not given. And not only that, and woman empowerment, it is there only on the papers, not in real practical. I think we have to bring this seriously as an implementation fact. Then only we can see that the women employees will have a trust and belief in the policies and all. They will come forward to work for the companies. I've seen most of the female employees are also not allowed to work in the night shift considering the compliance issues. And also, I have seen that some of the sectors, some of the projects are not given to women employees considering the other aspects. And one of the major thing I have personally experienced, even though we have telling that the maternity leaves are increased, but the employers, whenever they are hiring the woman employees, they were definitely thinking when the lady has married, if she is married recently, whether this lady will go on maternity leave. Again, for 9 months, this lady will be not available. Again, we have to plan for other person for in that place. I think this some of the statutes and laws, I think they are having some adverse effect for the few women employees in some of the companies. And some of the things we are also seeing that women employees after going for employment, when they will come back, they are fired, they are terminated. It is not only because they are going on a maternity leave, because there is a change in the post and the chairing technology. Maybe that role is no more required for that duration. There are so many other things are there, and we have to bring the equal system, not only to say, but implementation fact should be stronger.
Thank you, Shama. So, Vaibhav, one of the most disturbing things about the Indian employment sector is that 1.4 billion people in the country, 900 million people are 90 crores are of working age between 16 and 65. And of the 900 million people that are eligible to work, only 75 million, 8% or so, is on official payroll. And the rest of the 92%, we really don't know what they're doing. And I don't think we can become a first world nation in 100 years unless we fix that number. Because if you're not on official payroll, then you don't have any safeguards, any pensions, any insurances, or you can get loans and have your life move forward. And I think that's where we lawyers can probably play the biggest role. Why are they not on official payroll? Why are they not getting licenses? Why are they not registering, etc., etc.? And you know this better than anybody, Weber. What's your solution to have a majority of the country working on official payroll?
So I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Chok, and that's a very, very valid, important point that you have raised. While I agree with you, and I personally feel that the biggest reason is because if you look India as an entire demographic, you have an organized sector, but there is a much more stronger unorganized sector in the entire country, which is also running a parallel economy, right? And that's also one of the biggest reasons that why you have so many employees who are not on payrolls. And that's the reason why they are not being provided social security benefits, pension benefits, and other issues relating thereto. So for any government, for any authority to ensure that there are more people on the payroll, the biggest, I would say, the solution to this problem is enforcement of laws. Now, if you see, we have laws for each issue, whether with respect to minimum wage, you have a specific legislation which require each employer to provide minimum wage to the employees depending upon their skill sets. We have pension laws, we have payment of wages, everything is there, but enforceability is something which lacks. And the reason is because we are only looking at urban cities. Yes, in urban cities, I would say still enforceability is to an extent of 60-65%. But if you go to rural cities or rural places, over there, enforceability is a bigger gap. You have so many small shops, small manufacturing units, and I don't even call them as MSME because they are very small. Maybe you have some 5 people working over there. But given the fact that there is no enforceability in those areas, the authorities are there, but they also have a very kind of a lackadaisical approach wherein they are not enforcing these laws to the extent it is required to be enforced. So I would say that once enforceability is stronger, I think there will be a shift wherein the compliance with respect to the law will be much more. And I'm not saying that law should be considered as a burden or compliances should be taken care as a burden or an extra cost. But yes, to an extent it is possible, most organizations should be compliant with the applicable laws.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Okay, we have a bundle of questions, so I'll go to them. If we run out, then I'll go to my questions, but we have wonderful questions. So I'll ask them rapid fire in the same order I asked my first questions, and see if you can keep your answers to 45 seconds. Otherwise, I'll interrupt you like they do on Indian television, yeah? Okay. Arka, you get the first question. By Dr. Baldeo Pandey. How will the wage and employment system be made more just and humane, especially for contractual, unorganized, and unskilled workers? Can domestic workers such as housemaids, gardeners, car washers, and home tutors be brought under better wage and social security protections?
So far as the unorganized sector is there, there was already an Unorganized Sector Act of 2008. And although the currently, if you look at the Code on Social Security, it does not talk about the unorganized sector per se. It talks about the gig and platform workers. So until and unless you're bringing those unorganized sector within the gig and platform workers, it would be difficult. And we also need to be mindful about the enforceability, right? As in, let's say that I engage a housemaid, how and I do not pay the notional floor wage of a minimum wage or whatever you identify. How do you go and enforce against an individual? We also need to be practical in terms of what is possible, what is doable. Definitely, there needs to be a standardization of wage, there needs to be a protection of wage, but is it implementable? Can you go for, insofar as, let's say, posh, I can still understand. If there is there are legislations which even goes into your house, right? If there is a posh related issue at your home, you can still go and initiate the process thing. But how do you go and enforce a wage legislation against an individual? I have my doubts.
Purnima, you have an answer how an individual can be made an employer?
So here is where I believe that we need to get into out-of-box thinking, which we have not done so far in the Indian context. There needs to be a mechanism where workers in the unorganized sector, for example, migrant labor coming from different states, or people working in the domestic sector, there needs to be a sort of registration for them. We need to set up a nodal agency. At least one should be aware, the government should be aware of the movement of migrant labor. This will help in many things, including, cutting out crime and things like that. Also, one will know who's coming from where. There must be some, I won't go into permits because that's over-regulating, but maybe there should be there has to be data. The data is where India is lacking. There is very little real data collection. We don't know what is happening in the unorganized sector. It's very, very free for people to regulate themselves, or unorganized employers to regulate themselves. So I think some out-of-box approach is needed there. Maybe a nodal agency, which is pan-India. A whole layer of how to deal with unorganized sector needs to be thought through.
Thank you. I remember many years ago, a senior official of the Indian consulate or embassy in US was got put into trouble by the Indian US attorney Preet Bharara because she wasn't maintaining timesheets for her housemaid. So Dinesh, I have a question for you. Should India have a national workers' bill of rights covering wages, overtime, meal breaks, workplace injuries, and wage theft?
I'm extremely sorry, I can't answer this.
No,
I'm not aware of this bill, but
the
I
question
can.
is, should there be a national uh, bill of rights, workers' bill of rights covering
Oh,
wages, overtime, meal breaks, workplace injuries?
okay. Yes. I mean, see, what I'm aware of is there's not only the problems of unorganized sector, it's increasing the gig workers, as they say. So what is happening? That's another sector of which requires security, which requires, um, you know, maybe pension, ESI, whatever the normal organized sectors have. And this is increasing. Uh, it is increasing by day. I mean, if you see it, companies like Uber, Ola, all of them have these gig workers, um, and I think it's all the more reasons. Not only there is one organized sector, which are like servants and maids and drivers, but also this gig workers. I mean, there's all the more need to have such a legislation providing security to the workers, uh, normal workers. I mean, not only the workman, the traditional definition of workman, but also in the modern economy, workers who can be data entry operators. Uh, so I think yes. I mean, to answer your question very quickly, yes, we need these kind of laws.
Thank you. So, Madhu, the next question is for you.
Yes.
The question is, what role, by Nasim Kuchi, what role do taxation and tax compliance play in India's GDP growth and employment generation? Can better tax compliance help reduce the employment crisis?
Before I get there, I just wanted to touch upon the unorganized thing, probably add bit of more clarity with regards to, for example, domestic maid, can they be? See, I think the labor codes have some amount of answers for this. For example, code on wages, when it defines what is what is an establishment, is very wide, and it is possible for a domestic maid tomorrow to sue one of us as employers, and then if the wages are not being paid as required under the Code on Wages Act. I think people, us as lawyers, have not really explored that. In association with, to answer Purnima's query about data on migrant workers, the Occupational Safety Code definitely provides for that, and then it makes it mandatory for the employers to gather migrant workers data. And in parallel, government has central government and the MOLE, there is a e-Shram portal which requires the unorganized workers to register themselves, including gig and platform workers. And the unorganized social security law, which is there, which is now kind of submerged into the code on social security, and the state and the central governments have been given powers to come up with social security for them. And one of the first could be the gig and platform workers social security scheme. And therefore, I think there is a lot of effort in this direction. And I think we as lawyers also, probably when some clients come to us with these issues, probably we can help familiarize people on them and then take it forward. Having said that, to answer your question, the better tax compliance and all of that will have a huge role to play. See, for example, labor codes today, in the IR code, there are industrial tribunals to be formed, which need to be which needs to have an administrative member and a judicial member. And with the why, it is covering lot more percentage of workforce, because the definition of industry is far wide. And how will the state governments are going to set up these tribunals if we don't have enough money? So better tax compliance, therefore enough. But then we as lawyers, etc., probably should also follow up with the governments wherever, through as a lawyers collective or through some of the associations where we can be part of it, the allocation to the labor and employment department when it comes to implementation of this. Biggest problem today from an employer perspective as well as a worker perspective, if you take a matter to an industrial tribunal, it doesn't get done before the lifetime of that employee or the employer, right? So if you really want these issues addressed quickly, as somebody pointed out, we need a legal system which addresses disputes between employers and employee in an effective and pretty quick manner. So in all of this, your prompt payment of tax and then better collection of tax and allocation of that tax into the respective labor departments or labor ministry, and then effective spend of the tax into appropriate this thing will definitely help.
Okay, Madhu,
I mean,
you made finance minister for 30 days and you're charged that you can only do one thing and that's it, and then you can leave. Would you have the rich farmers of India pay taxes?
My basic belief is that everybody who makes an income, they should pay. And why should only farmers be given an exemption to that? I do, while recognizing that they do human service from a perspective of growing food for all of us. But the benefit of exemption to agricultural income tax is not being, or is not being only, is probably is not reaching the intended target. It is reaching and it's being taken advantage. We all know by whom, and therefore probably that is one thing that can be considered. If I am given that 30 days responsibility, maybe it's a good idea to consider
But
that.
similarly, lawyers are exempted from GST. Okay, so we as lawyers should also answer this question.
Especially if you're not paying it, if you're collecting it and forwarding it, then why not?
Right,
I
right.
hope you don't have any lawyer friends, Madhu, that supply you agriculture. You're gonna have to
I do hope so. Yes,
you're
with
gonna
the
have to do
social media where
Zomato
it reaches, I don't know.
So, Purnima, a question for you from Dr. Subrata Devnath. Are all labor laws applicable to the private sector? Is there an effective inspection or monitoring mechanism to ensure these labor laws are actually implemented and followed?
So, of course, there has been a change, as we are all aware. The codes have come in. The intention of those codes was to streamline and bring all those numerous acts that were there into four codes. And yes, the codes are applicable unless exceptions are carved out in respect of any a particular area, which is not the case. Largely, all the codes are applicable to the extent that they have been notified, are applicable to the private sector. Now, when it comes to inspections, that's a very good question. A lot of focus is on ease of doing business. And a lot of the state so far, the state related, inspections, etc., were all delegated out to the companies themselves, in the sense that they had to do their self declaration that these are being complied with, and only occasionally, if something is reported, would the inspector come. There, I believe there is a gap. Many companies are not very aware of what are those compliances. So that is where compliance officers like Madhu come in very handy, and ensure that the self certification is done correctly, and whatever is needed to be done is actually done correctly. But I do believe the Indian context is still not very mature, except for those very matured companies on the top. The middle level and the lower level, the MSMEs and the middle sector companies, the middle level companies are not very mature when it comes to compliances. I do believe that some thought has to go into where self-certification should be permitted, and where a little more, sort of supervision and involvement is required from the government. I do believe that still needs to be thought through and looked. And I will go back to data, and Madhu, just to highlight, in the point that we were talking about earlier, sorry, I've got a sore throat. There is a lot of independence in the unorganized sector that is given to the employers. So a lot of data collection is the responsibility of the employer, etc. And that is where leakages are happening. Really, if that control was to be done, there was some nodal agency making sure that it's all being done. So that ties in with this question of compliance. Then that would be more effective. See, proof of the pudding is in eating it. We can have all the laws, we can have all the state level policies, to encourage ITES, self-certification has been given. All that is wonderful. Some handful will be very compliant and will do what they have to. But the problem of India is not where the companies are compliant. The problem of India is where the companies are non-compliant. And there I feel the Indian mindset of, supervision, penal provisions, all those being enforced becomes very important. And therefore, I feel a little tighter. I'm not saying on a regular basis there has to be supervision, but maybe more of reporting is something that is needed. And that will all come out from data. I'm a big fan of data, and I think that is where data collection is lacking. If data is collected on a systematic, transparent basis over the years, to see how these compliances have been panning out, how self-certification has truly been panning out, then I think a lot of demons will come out, and we'll be in a better position to give the employees what they have been promised under the acts.
Thank you. So Shama, question for you. In one sentence, what is India's biggest mistake since 1947 with respect to the jobs crisis that we have now? What is India's biggest mistake?
I think, as someone said earlier, so we have missed some of the process, like from agriculture to factories, manufacturing, then service and all. We have missed those steps and directly jumped from agriculture to service sector, and also that updation of the knowledge in the existing companies and all, that also is required. And the companies have to tie up with the colleges, schools and all, and they have to provide more and more industry related visits and internships and all. Not only that, whenever they are considering for the employment, they have to consider the interns who were part of their companies.
Wonderful. Thank you. Vaibhav. So if you're made the Labor Minister of India, what are 3 things you would do to create millions of jobs?
Okay. So I think one of the biggest indicator for job creation is manufacturer focus. So as a labor minister, I would like to have certain benefits being provided to the manufacturing or the factories or the manufacturing sector, just to ensure that there is more job creation and more people are encouraged to engage in business relating to manufacturing. Because India has done exceptionally well in the services sector, but manufacturing still there is a lot of gap between us and other fully developed countries like China. So the majority would be, if at all, there are certain benefits or labor benefits being provided to the manufacturing sector. First. Second, labor codes, to an extent, they have done a fantastic job in terms of ensuring that the compliance burden is reduced, because now I would say like 29, 30 or legislations have been subsumed into these 4 labor codes. But what is lacking is enforceability, given the fact that till now, there is some kind of an ambiguity between labor codes and certain existing labor legislations. Those are state specific. Just to give you an example, like the Shops and Establishments Act, which has not been subsumed. So unfortunately, the government is fully cognizant that there is an ambiguity, but so far, nothing has been done. So ultimately, this is the second most important aspect, which as a labor minister, these clarifications should be there. And third, while under the new legislation, there are certain new laws that have been introduced, but practically how this will be undertaken or practical implementation is something where there is a gap. Just to give you an example, there is a reskilling fund which has been set up. If any employer is retrenching a worker, there is a 15 days reskilling fund, or 15 days wages has to be contributed towards the reskilling fund. So as of now, this fund has not been set up. So ultimately, if someone is being retrenched after November 2025, what is the treatment? We aren't aware. Similarly, if you look at gig workers, there is, of course, a social security fund that has been set up. But how practically this will be implemented, while the contribution will be done by the aggregators, but where is the fund? And ultimately, the biggest gap for social security for gig worker is, now if I am driving with an Uber for 2 hours, then I'll switch to Ola, then I'll switch to Rapido. So how will you ensure that who pays for that fund? So these are certain gaps. As a labor minister, these are the 3 immediate steps that I will try to take.
Good.
If I may just supplement to what Vaibhav said. Vaibhav, I think reskilling fund has been set up on May 8th. But yeah.
Okay.
And Madhu, when you mentioned about that code on wages would cover the would be able to address the issue that I was highlighting, how to address the issue pertaining to individuals. See, I don't think that establishment definition itself can address everything because it has to be linked with some industry, manufacturing, trade, and occupation. In my house, I'm not running an industry. If I'm not running a chamber, if there is no industry, there is no occupation, this thing. So it probably would not qualify as an establishment.
Okay, there's a question on agriculture. It's a little confusing question, so I'll ask my agriculture question related. So, Arka, about what 600 million people, 60 crores in India live in the 600,000 villages. And let's say out of the 60 crores, half of them are actually working in agriculture. That would make it a big chunk of India's employment workforce, uh, maybe 25, 30%. Worldwide, people in agriculture are 10%. So to reach the world standards, India would have to move 15% people from agriculture to non-agriculture, which is moving about 5 crore people from agriculture to doing something else. What are they going to do?
I think the why people are engaged in agricultural sector and not probably formal uh, work sector is probably the lack of skills. What we need to ensure is that it's not, as in, I'm sure that people are not doing agriculture because it would probably were not going to do agriculture if there were other opportunities available, or even if the opportunities were available, if the persons were capable enough of taking those opportunities. So I think the primary factor that we need to ensure is that ensure that the scalability and employability of the people who are engaged are increased, whether by way of a whether by way of an internship, apprentice, vocational training, because I believe that there are enough opportunities, but the people are not skilled enough to take those opportunities.
Right. So I guess we knew we were going to have a cockroach question today, right? So the question, Dinesh, is that um, why is it that the Indian universities and college and school system are focused on education and not on skills and vocational training? What's the solution, Dinesh?
Yeah, it's a good question, close to my heart, because our firm actually works with a lot of institutions and colleges in terms of patents. As I said, we are IPR attorneys, and a lot of inventions coming out from these colleges. Um, so I think your question is valid. We are focusing on too much uh, on the curriculum that the university provides, which is good, which is updated also. But the way the world is moving with this artificial intelligence, blockchain, um, you know, uh, uh, learning, large learning modules, LLMs, they call it. So the information that these universities focus on providing to the students and then checking them based on the retaining the information that they have is something that should change now, especially with these new technologies coming in. So the kind of skills perhaps that were required, there will be new skills that students will have to learn about. So just to answer the question is not a it will not make you industry fit, as they say. So colleges would like you, your curriculum would like you to, cramp some questions and answers. By the way, last year's topper for IIT was an artificial intelligent agent. So you made him sit in the exams, and he could answer it accurately. So perhaps the students would like to learn the skills of how the prompt is generated, how the AI models work throughout the world. So there is definitely this lacking, and but there's a disconnect between what is taught in the colleges and universities, and when you go to the industry, there's something entirely different that they face. Um, so I think the solution is again emphasis on skills, emphasis on doing more online courses. There's and I can do an online course of some Stanford professor teaching me. So I think the universities should go in for more and more of practical online and modern kind of trainings apart from the traditional courses that they have. So I think that's the solution. UGC can make it mandatory also. UGC
Yeah.
has power and they can make it mandatory.
Be careful when you sign up for the Stanford course. More than likely, it'll be an Indian professor teaching.
Right,
So,
right. So there's one additional point, Dr. Chug, is this is these there's an NIFR, there's a university rankings that they give. I think and they have ranking based on the number of patents that they have and the research that they have done, what they have written and published. I think they should also, the NIFR ranking, the UGC ranking that measures the success of a college, they should also have the skill set, the skill trainings and maybe the online trainings and the practical industry training that is provided in the university. Perhaps human resource ministry can take that recommendations and be more proactive on that.
thank you. Madhu, what is India's greatest economic opportunity between now and 2047?
Our greatest opportunity is our demography, and that is the youth, and how do you kind of ensure that they're productively employed from now on to 2047. It will determine whether we succeed or not. And the what we saw over the last week or a month is also the fact that they are not being productively employed, and then they don't see they are getting opportunities the way they believe they should, is where I think that's the reflection of what we saw in this thing. So biggest challenge is that, and towards that we really, the labor legal environment should ensure all these impediments that we've all discussed today, right? Whether it is inspection, whether it is enforcement, whether it is coverage, all of them have to be pretty quickly addressed. And I do believe the labor courts present an opportunity. Just to answer Arka, the fact an establishment is defined to be a place where an occupation is also carried on, and occupation as a term is not defined. There is, if somebody, a domestic worker, had to carry on, say, take it forward in the legal system, if that we have saying that what I am doing is also an occupation, I see an opportunity for them also to be covered under the code on wages, is what my point is. So I think we will evolve there, because I, on my this thing, I also advise an organization which organizes or domestic workers seva, and they are seriously looking into this as an opportunity. So that's the thing. So to answer your question, Dr. Chuk, yes, the biggest opportunity is our demographic. Whether it becomes a dividend or or a pain is what we need to quickly take a decision, and then labor laws will be an instrument ensure that it is a dividend. Thank you.
Purnima, should India have 100 cities dedicated to manufacturing and exports? The next question.
Manufacturing, why 100 cities dedicated? I think 100 cities need to be diversified. Yes, manufacturing should take a very, very important seat there. But I think diversification is key because, the excessive focus on manufacturing may miss out on the creativity that exists in our youth today. So if you see, we were talking about what we saw last month and this last week. see how creative our youth is, and see how they are willing to use the technologies available across the globe, leverage it, and do very, very innovative things. So I think entrepreneurship, R&D, allowing the youth to be able to creatively play around and see what they'd like to do, and instead of just focus cities towards one mainstream manufacturing, I think maybe underutilizing what we have today in our youth. So I do believe manufacturing is very important. It has to be there across the country, but I think a lot of focus has to go into utilizing the youth, energy of the youth. And one thing I just want to take this opportunity to say, that there is advocacy missing for the youth. And that is one of the reasons why we saw what we saw recently. I mean, every pressure cooker needs a safety valve. I think industry has advocacy in terms of the industry bodies. What about the youth? Are the student unions being utilized correctly? Are the employment exchanges being utilized correctly? Are the industry bodies actually doing advocacy for those students who will eventually come into that industry? These are things we need to see, and they need a voice. So I think that is something that also needs to be considered.
Yeah, good point. Economist had an article last month that there's a revolution amongst the youth throughout the world, Nepal, Bangladesh, there's other countries. Why do the youth in India don't say anything, don't uh, do revolutions? And the answer is, they asked a lot of people. So the answer is that the majority of the youth in India feel that things are getting better and all the wonderful successes around the corner. So that's pretty good optimism. And so, Dr. Begum, the next question goes to you. Should the success of a chief minister be judged in India based on how many jobs they've created?
I agree with this. So if we consider that, I think then only we can get the more employment. And not only that, what I think is along with the GDP, we also have to come across some national employment performance index also should be part of measurement. So when we have both together, then I think we can minimize this unemployment issue. The chief
Thank you.
minister should be held responsible. So there should be some checks and balance and some implementation fact. Then only they will be held more responsive.
Wonderful. So I guess Tamil Nadu is winning these days. So I have 6, 7 questions. I've jumbled them up and I'm going to made it into one question.
Yeah,
Vaibhav?
Tamil Nadu is excellent because even I have attended many because I wanted to be in import export trade last year. So I have attended many events and all there. So I have seen that Tamil Nadu chief minister is doing excellent job. Not only that, and they are investing and they are focusing more on the Indo-Australian path, so that they are encouraging this more and more. And
Yeah,
also
the
we have
states
seen
need
that
to
more and
compete.
more doctorate and more people from the Tamil Nadu only.
Yeah, the
Even
states need to
education
compete.
system is
That'll be
also
great.
super. Yeah.
Horses run faster when they're running next to each other. So last question to Vaibhav. Vaibhav, if you look at the advanced economies, they've gone from agriculture to manufacturing to service and consumption, basically just shopping and eating. And and China is a good example of going from agriculture to manufacturing and now to services and consumption. So why does India have to stop at manufacturing? Why can't we just go from agriculture to services and consumption and everybody just start eating more and wearing more clothes and shopping and buying more cars? And we don't need manufacturing. Let somebody else manufacture. What's your answer?
No, I would believe that I think each of the service or each of the sector, they are enablers to each other. I think rather than focusing on one, India, in order to prosper and grow exponentially and maybe outbeat China, we should concentrate on each of the sector, whether it's agriculture, service, and manufacturing. And now, if you look at manufacturing, this is not a traditional manufacturing setup. in a manufacturing also, there is a lot of a service sector that plays an important role because manufacturing has also become very advanced. Now, AI-based manufacturing has also started. So I would say that each sector complements each other. And ultimately, the biggest, I would say, strong point for India is the population as well. So consumption, there is a lot of demand within the country itself. So if we are great at agriculture, services, manufacturing, you have the consumption in India, and whatever is in excess can be exported.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We just 1 minute behind. We like to end it in 75 minutes. This is wonderful. Very, very grateful, all of you joining us and giving us your Sunday morning. Thank you, Arka. Thank you, Dinesh, Madhu, Purnima, Shama, and Vaibhav. Great, great, great contribution. Thank you for making our panel very successful. We have wonderful remarks from our audience. Thank you. Hope to see you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank
And
you,
please
everyone.
join the
Bye.
boards of the local ILA chapters in your cities. Shanti will be sending you an invite. We need to make this association stronger. There's 400 cities in India with a population of over 1 lakh. We want a chapter in all 400 cities, and collectively, the next revolution in India must come from us. We need to run the country. End of story. We've given everybody else a lot of time, 75, 78, 80 years now. It's time we did what we did in 1947. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.